thank you all for attending. Hopefully this will be a really informative session, and I'd really like the students to take a lead on what they're interested in, because I feel like I talk far too much and might not ask the questions that you want answering. So I think each of the three guests are going to tell you a bit about what they studied, any advice they have, anything about their courses, anything that you can be doing now to prepare and during this sort of quite difficult transition period when we're not in school. And then if we allow students to ask questions in the conversation box, if you can all make sure your microphones are off so it stops the echo, that would be absolutely perfect. And I'll hand over to Matty.
Okay. Hi guys. So I'm a second year biochemist at Oxford, and for A-levels I did maths and the 3 sciences. So originally I chose biochem because it was chemistry that first intrigued me, and then I sort of wanted to find out the chemistry that was going on inside me. So I went down that kind of route. For you, I think it is so important that you find a subject that you actually want to do. I know, like, before I picked biochem, there was a lot of like thing where I was going to do medicine, and I just bouncing from subject to subject. But the issue is when you do come to applying, people can read through this like fake persona if you're trying to put one across to sell yourself. So you need to find one that you are actually intrigued in. And I think the best way to sort of reflect that is obviously you're doing your subject, you're doing the course you're doing now, but it's if you get some reading. A lot of people find that they'll just read books and books and books and just list them off on the personal statement. And universities sort of see that as, oh, well done, they've done reading, but they're not really showing what they've learned and why they're interested in it. So I think it's important in this time now, if you find like a few books about your subject that you're specifically interested in, find like a niche topic in that and pull it out and do a bit of extra research on it. Like I genuinely think one of the main reasons I got in was because of one book I read. So I read for biochem, there's a book called The Vital Question, and it focused on like the beginning of life, and for me that was an interesting topic. And then in interview, they asked me about it, and one of the tutors was actually researching that small segment I mentioned in my personal statement. And because I'd read up on that and done further research, it showed that I was actually interested and willing to learn, and therefore they put you through to a full course rather than just someone who's like ticking off books and books and books.
So, sorry to interrupt. So can I just ask you a couple of questions there, Matty? So any advice for year 11 or year 12 students in terms of what they can be doing now? So obviously lots of reading. Is there anything else they could be getting involved in?
Yeah, so obviously reading's a good one. Listening to podcasts, just properly finding out what interests you rather than just ticking off things. It actually should be for you rather than for the university. So instead of just doing stuff that you think the university will be happy with, do stuff that you're interested in, and then you'll find out a better way to apply to university. I think another thing is obviously work experience is going to be quite tough to do in these times. So if you can, try and do like online volunteering. I don't know if the school's doing anything like online clubs and stuff like that, but if not, try and help run something that comes across really good. If you're showing yourself that you're volunteering, you're wanting to teach, it's showing that you want to learn the topic better and you're also willing to spread it to other people. So
okay, that's really helpful. Rebecca, you joined in a second, so would you mind telling the students a little bit about your course and your experience in sixth form and any advice you have?
So yeah, I'm Rebecca. I'm a 4th year at Oxford in French and philosophy. So that's my final year. It's still an undergrad degree, because with French you take the year abroad. So I spent last year in Lyon in France, which was probably the best year. But I mean, I suppose it would be because it had no work really. So I did French, Spanish, and religious studies at A level, and I remember. There was always this reaction, oh, why aren't you doing like a maths or English or one of the sciences? Because, you know, they're not those central kind of 5 subjects. But actually, I think it was probably the best decision because it was kind of the ones I liked the most. And the other kind of piece of advice I would have is at kind of A-level stage, I know Matty said he did 4 subjects, but as I said, I did 3. So I did politics IS level. But I think you've just got to think about whether it's worth doing the extra work for the 4th, because I think for me, I'm kind of happy I just did the 3 I did do in the A2. I don't know if that's the same now, actually. Is that different now?
Yeah, we tend to tell students now to do 3. Do have a few that do 4th, but the 4th would tend to be something like further maths.
So you can do what they'll usually, at places like Oxford, just ask for them, like, say you needed, I don't know, 3 A's, but you then need to get 4 A's. So it actually isn't, they're just going to expect more of you. So it's probably, I don't know, it's up to you, but I'm not sure how worth it is. Yeah, so I think in A-level time is probably the most kind of important time to be preparing, obviously, your statement and stuff. I wouldn't get too stressed about it in year 11, because I think obviously you can start thinking about it, but also you've got to realise that you could be the best student ever and you might still not get into the university of your choice, whatever that is, whether that's Oxbridge or anywhere. But that doesn't mean that it's your fault or that there's something wrong with you. So you've also got to, I think, be realistic and not worry too much about things, especially at like year 11. But yeah, I think what really helped for me was definitely, I was in the debating society. So I was thinking if the debating society isn't running, it should probably still run online, because it's definitely one of the things they really like to see. And I was speaking to my French tutor, so he's the head of French, and he ran the French exams and stuff in first year. So he's a really big, like one of the big professors at Oxford. And he was telling me basically how the process works, the kind of, and it's quite interesting. So there's something like 5 parts to it. So you've got like what you write in your personal statement, MLAT for me, it was like a test that you do to get it, and that's one stage. Then there's the interview, and then there's a piece of work you send in sometimes, and I think there was something else. Oh, well, yeah, your grades, obviously. So he said that it's interesting because there'll be people that will do really badly in one of those, but still get in. So I think he was kind of saying, obviously, you want to do good enough on most of them, but it isn't all about the interview. So I think you can think that things like, you know, the tests beforehand aren't going to be that important, or your personal statement doesn't really matter, but it actually really does, and it isn't all on the interview at all. But the interview it's definitely an important part. But I think also there's loads of kind of cliches and stereotypes about the interviews that aren't kind of true. So, you know, I mean, I don't know if the boys agree, but I wasn't, you know, asked anything. I had a philosophy interview, which could potentially get a bit weird, but it really didn't. You know, there was no strange questions out of the box. It was mainly about discussing from my personal statement, and also in subjects like philosophy where you're not expected to have any prior knowledge to it, they will just give you cases to look at before, so you just sit in the library for half an hour thinking about them, thinking about how things, like, you know, what is the issue with these cases, and then you just have time to discuss that after. So it's definitely worth looking into how your individual kind of course the interview will be based on. But I agree with Matty that it's definitely good to have something that you're really interested in, because I know that I talked about the rise of the extreme right wing in France, and then when I was in my interview, my tutor went and got a copy of Le Monde, just, you know, the main newspaper in France, just to say, oh yeah, I saw this article, you might find it interesting. So I think, you know, that actually shows as well that they're taking something back from you, which is kind of what a tutorial is. A tutorial should be kind of, what you have at uni should be a discussion more than, even though they're clearly way better at it than you know, they should still find you interesting too. So it's kind of a two-way thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything.
Can I ask, how did you choose your course then, Rebecca? Because obviously the philosophy was new to you. How did you come across your course? How did you choose your course?
Yeah, I mean, so I knew I was going to do French, but then I wasn't sure to do French and Spanish or to do French philosophy. And I'd done RS, and there is kind of similarities in it. But yeah, it is difficult to know, because obviously there's bits of philosophy that I'd never really thought about. But I think, yeah, it's kind of hard. I didn't really know how I chose it. It's just I came across it and I started looking into it in the main questions and found it interesting. And I didn't mean that I had no idea, like, for example, I mean, I still have no idea how to know whether I'm really here or whatever. But you know, if you think, oh, that sounds cool though, I'd like to try and think about that, then I think that's the most important thing, is definitely just interest, because loads of, with topics like philosophy, you're never going to solve the questions, and most humanities, to be honest. There's no right answer in most humanities subjects. So if you're going to go down the humanities route, don't worry about, obviously it's cool if you're good at it, but no one's really that good at it because there's no answer.
Okay, thanks very much, Rebecca. And Nick, can we go to you?
Yeah, so I did 4 A levels. I did maths, economics, history, and geography, but I did it when A levels were modular. So actually, I only had, when in year 13, I only had 3 A levels plus 2 maths exams, which I'd had like all year to work for. So it wasn't like I was doing sort of like 4 linear A levels at all. I also so actually, I don't know if any of you read the little description about me, but I do land economy, which is a combination of economics, geography, and law. It's the way that I found out about that was actually I got told that if I wasn't good enough to apply for economics, I should apply for that as a joke, really. And didn't know what it was the first time that I got told about it. Researched it, and it was actually like absolutely perfect for me because I like the sort of geography side of things. I like the economic side of things. Obviously did both of those at A level, but then there was also the law, which was like completely new to me. I thought could be quite interesting. Turns out I am actually really enjoying it. With regard to my interview, yeah, I'd just echo what Rebecca and Matty have said actually, in the fact that so I got really interested in something called development economics, which is like how poor countries grow and develop. And it turns out the specific college that I applied to in Cambridge was the person who interviewed me was like an expert in their field at that. I didn't apply to the college because of that fact. I actually applied because there was a football pitch on site, which was like it was the only college that had a football pitch on site in the centre. But it turned out that my interviewer was also super interested in that. We had a really interesting conversation. I think, yeah, like again, what Matty and Rebecca were saying about maybe like not being afraid to like say what you took out of these readings, because anybody can read a book, but not everybody can like understand it or criticize it or think about it more than like the average person. So I actually ended up criticizing a book that one of her really good friends had written, and she only told me this after I'd gotten in. So that obviously maybe wasn't the smartest move by me, but I think maybe she liked the fact that I was willing to share my opinion. I can't think of any. I just read loads. My work experience was poor. I think I had I had 1 week somewhere that I loosely related to my university application, but like I knew going into it, my work experience was like not really relevant and not really like useful. But I don't think they minded that much, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions, and then I'm hoping that some students will start to ask you some things. So have you thought beyond your degree subjects in terms of what you might do? Have you always had plans, or have you left it quite open? What are your thoughts, Matty?
For me, at the moment, I'm completely open. I'm second year, it's 4-year degree, so I've got another 2 years, and I literally have no clue what I want to do. So I like that's part of the reason I chose biochem as well, because it was like I can either go down this labs research route, like I know quite a few people older following the same path. They were now looking at coronavirus vaccines and stuff, which seems really interesting. But then also I could just completely branch off and start getting into a financial sector. So I literally have no idea. I'm just enjoying my degree, really.
That's great to hear, actually. And what about you, Rebecca?
Oh God, well, I've got 2 weeks, and then I suppose I need to make a decision.
No pressure.
Oh my God, I don't know. I mean, so when I was in Lyon, I did a lot of journalism. I wrote for an English paper, and I've like done some work experience at the Times and stuff, which also I got the work experience at the Times fashion desk because the woman who's fashion editor of the Times went to my college at Oxford.
Okay.
So, you know, you definitely get good links through Oxford.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look into that, but creative industry with coronavirus isn't really a thing at the moment, so we'll see, I suppose. But I also did teaching, which I loved, so I definitely want to move back to France at some point, so yeah, I don't know really.
Yeah, so keeping it open. And what about you, Nick? Have you given it any thought? Because obviously your degree is quite broad, and you said you really enjoyed the law aspect.
Absolutely. So I'm second year as well with Matty, so I've still got quite a lot of time. Mine's only a 3-year course. But so because I do some law exams, I can actually get exemptions if I say you need to pass either a solicitor test or a barrister's test to become a solicitor or a barrister. And through my degree, I think I get like a certain amount of exceptions depending on which modules that I choose to pick this year and next year. So that route's really open. I've not really thought about it much, to be honest. I think I might maybe, depending on results and depending on whether I'm fed up of it or not, like stay on for a master's. But we'll see about that. I've not really thought about it. I am just really enjoying studying though, and I'm hearing about all these people getting like jobs which are just ridiculous hours, and that's definitely not my speed. Like these like 16-hour days, I'm not about that life currently. I don't think I will be.
Ever.
Yeah. Sounds like too much like hard work to me. Yeah.
So we've had a couple of questions come through. So the first one, go on, sorry, Rebecca. So
I just asked Megan, just because Megan, if you can just say whether, because most degrees now you can do a year out, so I'm just wondering what your question is, if it's about a language degree where it's compulsory or not. So.
Okay, we'll ask.
But she can just reply to that.
Molly's asked, what are the major differences, do you think, between Oxbridge and all the other universities?
So, genuinely, I think there's a lot of stereotypes behind Oxford students and Cambridge students, and it's all a load of rubbish, honestly. In terms of, like, the social life, like, I've got quite a few other mates in different unis, and I've went and visited them. And I think one of the big differences is colleges. So in terms of other unis, you're often put into like halls and you've got a flat and there's about 9 of you in this little flat with a kitchen, and you're kind of like not forced to be mates with them, but that's your friendship group, and then you can branch off by going to like other societies and people with your subject. Whereas I found with Oxbridge and the colleges specifically, there's about 90 people in your year. So it's like another sixth form really, and you meet everyone at the beginning, and you're all in college, and there's like a JCR, which is like the commie. Or chilling there in the day. And it's just like, it's not this big thing where you're working like 24 hours a day. Like everyone's going out all the time. So it is like really good. I think the stigma behind it is quite off.
I think that there are differences as well, like.
Go on, Rebecca.
I think there are differences as well, though, kind of, and because we have to like also tell you the truth, and I'm going to be honest, it is harder than a lot of other universities. You will have way more work. You will have less time, and that can be good because at least you're not like sitting around doing nothing. But also, I think we need to be honest in that unless you're willing to like do the work, it's not for you, because it can be really stressful. And it is annoying when your other friends have like 1 essay every month and you've got like 2 every week. So it's harder. So you've got to also bear that in mind. I think that is one of the main differences. And obviously it's not necessarily a positive difference, but it is.
I was going to say, actually, would it be helpful?
I can't hear you, Miss Haywood. Could you pop it in the box?
Oxbridge, and how it differs to friends you've got at other universities.
Miss Haywood, could you say that again? It broke up for me.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, would it help to outline what a typical week is like in your subject at either Oxford or Cambridge, and perhaps compare that to what your friends are doing at other universities?
Okay. Yeah, for biochem, it's quite like high contact hours probably compared to other universities. So normally you'll have like 1 or 2 lectures in the morning. then a tutorial or a class in the afternoon, and that's only like 3 hours contact time, which probably doesn't sound a lot now you're in sixth form, but compared to other unis, that probably is quite high, especially when you've got labs later on in the week. But I think, like with other universities, it is what you make of it, really. You can sit there and read loads on your lectures and discover more and do loads of reading before your essays, or you can literally just do the bare minimal and get through. And like with other universities, you could be reading loads and doing that. So I don't think it is that much different. I suppose it's just how you handle it, really, but there probably is more workload.
Could anyone go into a bit of detail about the tutorial system then? Because that is something that's very different, isn't it, from what your friends experience?
Yeah, so... Oh, after you, Rebecca.
No, go on, Nick.
Oh, right. So I'll handle the week thing, the tutorial supervision thing, and also there's a question here about personal statement for land economy specifically. I wrote it with the word economics instead of land economy, implied for economics absolutely everywhere else. And then you fill out a supplementary application questionnaire, and I said in my supplementary application questionnaire, which is specific for Cambridge, that I'm really actually like super interested in land economy, and these are like the specific reasons why. And then in my personal statement, which was for all of the universities, I wrote about economics, but with a slight like geography, public policy slant to it. With regards to the week, I'm a bit weird and log the amount of minutes that I work a day, so I can like give you quite like a precise answer to this. So for first year, this really surprised me because it's like nowhere near as much in terms of minutes as I did at school. So in my first 2 terms, including lectures, work, catching up on lectures, and then supervision work, which I'll get onto in a second, is that like added up to about 4 hours a day. So I'd maybe have lectures. I'd have about 3 hours of lectures on 3 days of the week, and then on 2 other days of the week I'd have a supervision, which is I would have groups of 2 to 4 people, 2 to 3 people, where we would discuss with an academic who's an expert in their field very questions that have been set, and it's really useful because you can really get to like the point of what you don't or do understand, and really get some like great feedback on maybe like how you could have done this better, what you didn't understand on this. So that'd be what my week would look like in terms of I'd have like 3 days of lectures, 2 hours of supervisions a week, and then in Oxford they call it tutorials, but it's like the same thing, pretty much, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And there's a couple more questions come in. So somebody's asked, what's the most important part of applying? I think Rebecca probably answered this when she sort of said that it was really quite holistic and there was lots of factors that were being taken into consideration. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I think just coming across as like genuinely interested in it, like then everything else kind of builds off that. And like, yeah, because if you are genuinely interested in it, then chances are you'll have a really good personal statement, and then chances are you'll have a really good interview. Chances are, like, you'll come across well. I think, yeah, a lot of it's quite hard to fake. Like, so I suppose, like, for me anyway, I found like the most important part of my application was the fact that I probably cared more than the other people applying.
And how important do you think your GCSE results were in your application?
Yeah, I'd say it's sort of, your GCSEs are to show that you've got that base level of intelligence to get in, but realistically, like not that much. In terms that I feel like they want to know you're interested and you want to learn more for this subject. So for GCSE, you could have 5 subjects that you're interested in and another 4 or 5 that you just had to sort of push yourself through them. And obviously your grade's going to be a bit lower than that if you're just having to like battle through something you really don't like. But they know when you're applying to them, you're going to be actually interested in it. And if you can show that in the stuff you're interested in, you're willing to like deep down and properly learn more about it, then it should be fine.
Anyone else?
No, I think I'd agree in general, but I think also an important part to remember is if the degree has, so for mine, I had an MLAT and the PLAT of the PPE lat thing, and it was basically I had to write an essay for the philosophy section. It's not on philosophical knowledge at all. It was just, I think it was something to do with like the death penalty or something, and it's just about you arguing and being able to like write a coherent answer. And then for the language aptitude, that was like kind of like a grammar test. But they actually use that a lot, so they've already got their own ways of testing. So obviously grades are important, but most people that apply to Oxbridge have good grades. So it is more about they want to find out their ways of testing you and like how you think. Because even in so I've got my final exams in 2 weeks, but even for them, it's not really about what you know as much as how you apply it. So, you know, how you answer the question.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. One of our students has asked, how flexible have you found your courses to be? Could you shape them into what you are most interested in?
I think it depends on the course, but I think that's the same across university. So my boyfriend from Merchants, he is at Queen Mary in London, and he does engineering, and he doesn't get any choices. But I know as well that engineering students at Oxford don't get any choices. Whereas for me, I didn't have any choice in first year, but I think that's just to kind of give you the spread. But then I've basically been able to choose exactly what I want to do, been able to, you can major and minor when you do the 2 subjects and stuff, or keep it 50-50 like I did. So yeah, I definitely think it's hard as well for us to make the generalizations, because the boys were talking as well about going to lectures. Whereas in the humanities subject at Oxford, a big difference is that you don't have a lecture for each topic. So you'll have, for example, the papers that you do. It's like, so the modern French paper is 1750 onwards. And if you think about everyone that's ever written in French in that period of time, like that's a lot of people. So they can't do a lecture on every author and everything. So there aren't actually any compulsory lectures. Loads of people get good degrees and don't go to a single lecture in a humanities subject at Oxford. I wouldn't suggest that, but it's not uncommon actually for that to be the case, because also you can really like an author and it's just not lectured on that year. So I think because the focus is on tutorials, you get a bit more flexibility. But again, yeah, it depends on course. But I think that's actually another big difference I've noticed, is that lectures don't really matter, at least on the humanities side. Lectures don't matter as much as tutorials.
Okay, somebody's asked about any advice for writing good personal statements. Our year 12s are starting to think about those across both schools. Do you have any good advice for those?
I mean, other than, I know, again, when I spoke to my tutor, he was kind of just saying that they couldn't care less if you did D of E, for example. So I think obviously you can mention it, but you really have got to, you have to show your passion for the subject, not like your passion for other things as much. Obviously it's nice to be a rounded person, but also, that's not the biggest deal. So I think definitely talk about what you've read, what you found interesting, any experience you've done, and then things that are more relevant that you've done out of, for example, if you want to do something like law, you should be in the debating society, or to be honest, any humanities subject, you should be in the debating society in sixth form, because it's just the best way to prove that you've listened to other people's opinions and can respond to them. So I think things like that, so academic things that are still a bit more fun, like the debating club was always well fun in sixth form when I was in it anyway. But you can still do things like that are relevant and are a bit interesting and different, but it's not kind of like D of E, which isn't as, for example, which isn't as relevant.
What would you like?
I agree. It's all about, I think, here we go. It's all about just linking it like back to the subject you want to do. So, for example, I did like quite a lot of sport, and that's completely unrelated to biochem. But if you can then say I did this, and then for me, I started looking up the process of how lactic acid causes pain, which is biochem, and that's connecting the sport bit. So you're showing this is what I do, but I am really interested in my subject, so I brought it back to it and learnt more. Rather than just saying I did this and this makes me this kind of person, you've got to sort of demonstrate that in your personal statement.
Yeah, I did a lot of debating in sixth form and enjoyed that, and was able to talk about why that was useful. I went to something, I don't know if they still do it, but the University of Liverpool used to like just hold almost like open lectures, which would be on like a weekend. Be like five, yeah. I went to a few of those. So that's with regards to like trying to make your personal statement good. I focused a lot on like academics, to be honest. I had like a tiny bit at the end where it was like I did a week of work experience. I did debating. I went to those lectures, and I was like football captain. Like I focused very much on academic stuff.
Yeah, I think another thing, actually, you've just reminded me about the course thing. You were saying you went to lectures. I am for if you're doing a course you've not done before, you can usually get, for example, like there was a philosophy summer school I did. It was in London, so that was a bit, annoying, but it was only like 3 days, and it just gives you really, really basic info, but it is really useful because then at least you have something extra to say, because most people won't have done them. And you can get them that are free or paid for, so whatever you want really, and you can do them for law and things like that as well, I remember.
Yeah, there's loads of really good MOOCs online as well at the moment, particularly because students can't get out there, so I would encourage those as well. I think they're all really, really helpful, aren't they? I think if you are
doing like MOOCs and stuff like that, I think while you've got time, just get them done now. I know with me, when I was writing my personal statement, I was like, I haven't got much of this, I haven't got much of that. So you'd end up putting it in, and in that small time, you'd have to try and do all these MOOCs and pick something you learnt from them just to have it in your personal statement. So I'd say just do it now rather than leaving it up until the date of your personal statement when it's actually needed. So
yeah.
Okay, I think this question might be aimed at Nick, but anybody joined it, jump in. So the student said, as you did 4 A-levels, did the offer they make you require you to get the highest grade in all 4, or because you did an extra one, did they lower the offer?
So the entry requirement is A-star AA. So you can apply with 3 A-levels, absolutely. But for me, because they were able to see that I'd already done the year 12 modules of my maths, they gave me a 4 A-level offer, which was A-star and 3 A's. If that answers the question.
Okay.
I think because now most students only do 3.
Yeah.
Your offer will only be based on 3.
Yeah, well, for me, I did 4, but my offer was only based on 3 still. Yeah. So I'd finished my maths in year 12.
Yeah.
So the offer was still A-star AA, and I could just use that maths grade in that offer, meaning out of the 3 A-levels, I only needed to do 2 of them. It just looked good that I'd done an extra one for...
Yeah, so we certainly are encouraging at the moment quality over quantity, because they're definitely only going to offer on 3 at the moment because of changes. I think this is probably another question for Nick, actually. I can't understand the first bit. It says, what's the geography part of land economy like? Would you be able to manage without geography A-level?
Yeah, so I know people who haven't done geography A-level. It's pretty much exclusively human geography, so like basically cities. So in first year, there's only 1 geography paper out of 4, which is land economy, development and sustainability, which focuses on what it says on the tin, basically. It can focus on real estate and property markets. It can focus on green energy, that kind of thing, but it's all very much human based as opposed to like rocks, which is half of the A-level geography syllabus. And then this year it's focusing very much on like cities and why people live in cities as opposed to the countryside, and why cities are more productive than other places. And so there is the geography element there, but it tends to link with economics in the most part.
Another question then, how did you choose which college to apply for?
I just went to the open day and liked Pembroke, so that's probably my only reason. I don't think there's not big differences. I mean, in Oxford, maybe it's worth thinking about whether you want to be near the centre, because I'm lazy, so I would have hated to be like far out. But then some people aren't lazy, so it really just depends. I wouldn't worry too much though, because it's also very likely that you won't get the college you apply for. I mean, you might do, but you also might not. So.
Hmm. Yeah, with Rebecca, I think there's a lot of thing where it's like, oh, different colleges have like different vibes and stuff like that. But I think you should just look at the actual stuff like location, what facilities it's got. Like Nick said, it's got a footy pitch, which should have been solid. Mine's like 20 minutes away.
Exactly, yeah.
So just look for like the fact stuff rather than all this like, oh, this one has like a sporty vibe and this one has that. It's not really true. Chances are you'll love where you end up anyway. So.
About you, Nick, did you apply anywhere, or did you go?
Yeah,
Did you do anything?
No, I applied to Jesus just like I'm not joking, because it had a football pitch. It was the only one in the centre which had a football pitch, and like I suppose like it's come across, football's quite a big part of my life, and it genuinely, that was it was beautiful. It was quite big. As all the accommodation was in one place as well. So I'm not sure about Oxford, but in some other Cambridge colleges, you'd have like all your first years in one area of Cambridge, and then all the second years in a different area. And I quite like the idea that everybody, you could like draw a ring, and everybody who lived there was like throughout the years. I quite like that aspect. It was pretty. Yeah, and I looked in. I didn't like the idea of being in like a really small college. I quite like the idea of being in. So I think mine's about 150 a year, but they can go as low as 80 a year, and as high as like 170. So I quite like that aspect of it. Yeah, it's slightly out of the centre, but like 5-minute walk out of the centre, which is quite nice. Yeah.
Melissa's asked, if you write your personal statement really focused on supercurricular for Oxbridge, will you put other universities off?
I don't know what you mean by supercurricular. Do you mean kind of like the debating and stuff? Because I think that the whole point is that should be useful for every uni. So the first, like, I think you can think about your personal statement in 3 sections, or well, 2 sections. So if you've got one subject, like I think 80% of it should just be about that subject, and it should be about books you've read, what you're interested in, what modules you like and things. And then maybe kind of 20% will be, okay, and also I did this, which helps. But I think in general, so Oxbridge isn't that different from other unis in terms of, I think there should be a focus on the subject, on the academic. I don't think, for example, if you didn't mention something, I don't know, that you've played tennis for 5 years, I can't see, for example, Durham caring either, so I don't see that being a problem.
Unless you're applying for like Loughborough or like a proper sports like programme. Yeah, they just care about your subject really, and it's just nice to see that you do other stuff on the side.
Yeah, so we normally say sort of 80% sort of academic course related and 20% sort of a bit of a flourish about you. Do you agree with that, do you think?
Yeah, that's
I've got my personal statement here, and I think that's 185 of like 600 words, so it's a bit more than 20%, but in that big paragraph everything was always just linked to the subjects, so there was hardly any that was just like I've done this and this.
Okay, so I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'll ask it anyway. To what extent will being a prefect help in your personal statement?
I never was one, so I can't say.
Really? I'm really surprised.
Yeah, I know. So was I. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what a prefect is. Is it a boys' school thing?
Yeah, that is a boy. So it's just like a position of responsibility, I think. And there's like a team of boys that.
I was deputy head, and it's literally, it's like I've done a list. I've literally just said I'm also like peer sports swim captain and deputy head boy, and that was it. Like that's the only thing in there. So I don't think
it does show.
It's just a nice thing to have again.
Yeah, it's just a nice thing to have. I mean, it shows responsibility, but I mean, I know that the head girl and deputy head girls applied in my year to Oxford or Cambridge, and they didn't get in. So, and I wasn't either of those things. So I don't.
Prefect.
Or
Yeah.
pre-stars. Didn't know what one of those was.
I'm not bitter about it though.
No,
Yeah.
I can tell that. All right, that's really helpful. I'm just going to wait to see if any more questions come in because it's been really interesting listening to you. Miss Haywood, have you got anything you'd like to add?
I was just thinking in terms of the super curricular question. I think what Melissa was getting at was the sort of extra reading aspect rather than kind of extracurricular. And I think it's probably just worth pointing out that kind of reading above and beyond what's in the A-level courses would go down well with any university on a UCAS application, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
I don't think that kind of, I think making your personal statement good from an Oxbridge point of view is going to make it a strong one across the board anyway. I think, would you agree, Mrs. May? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Trying to think whether there's anything else I was considering asking. I think there's been a really good range of questions, actually, haven't there?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Covered,
That was
covered a
absolutely
lot.
super.
There's a kind of of Allemand, and like literally you learn that in like year 7. But you know, I still got in, so I just think they know that you're stressed and stuff. And it's really only when you go on your year abroad that when you get back, you're expected to be reasonably fluent. And even then, fluency is a difficult thing, and you're never going to know every word. So yeah, basically definitely not, unless you haven't done French A level, in which case then that gets complex. But if you've done French A level, then you can apply. And then as for I'm not sure if that you're asking because of French at uni or if you mean applying for a year abroad. And again, even if you're doing, I don't know, geography and you decide you want to go study in Spain for 3rd year, that'll be fine as well. You won't need to have Spanish or anything usually. It's just because it's a university link. So obviously it would help, but it's also an opportunity to go somewhere. Like people go to China and stuff and learn Chinese, and so yeah.
Okay, so I think we wrap it up there, but if Matty, Nick and Rebecca hang on just in case any more questions come in, does that sound okay? And so I'm really grateful for you giving up your time. If the students are finished asking questions, you're absolutely more than welcome to leave the chat and go and have some lunch. And if we hang around for the next 5 or 10 minutes, just in case anything else comes through, we can answer it separately. Yeah, perfect. So another one's come through already. I don't think it's a requirement, but are UCAS points important?
No, they're just like A levels, right? But I don't think any of the top unis work on those points. If I'm wrong. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you are right. So what you'll find is that most universities will offer on grades. So they will either be across the board in any subject, in any order, or they will specify what subject you need a certain grade in. Those grades for some universities convert to points. So a B, for example, would be 40 UCAS points. And so you can therefore do sort of an additional course or make it up from an AS and so on and so forth. So some universities will ask for grades, some will ask for points, but the grades convert to points for some universities.
Yeah, also I've just put my email there, and I don't know if the boys want to as well. So if you ever have like questions, and also if you want to just see like personal statements and stuff, I don't mind giving mine anyway. So
thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I
don't want to see a million Rebecca Gregory personal statements coming by.
With regards to UCAS points, it's been mentioned, I think, in the last week or so.
Everyone's saying thank you. Slowly logging out.
You're very welcome.
It's good. It's given me some procrastination, so I'll just carry on revising this afternoon.
Yeah, lots of thank yous. Tons of